Do good things come to those who wait? Well, it's been a year and a half since the last time we saw the Eighth Doctor live in Helen, and if they're going to make us wait that long, it probably should be a bit better. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and today we're looking at the latest in the 8th Doctor Adventures, Empty Vessels. Now, November 2025 gave us the 8th Doctor Adventures Causeway box set, which is one of my favourite 8th Doctor box sets in recent memory, some terrific stories in there, and they're following that up a month later with Empty Vessels. And understandably, it has a very hard act to follow with Causeway, which acts as a sort of finale for the 8th Doctor, Charlie and Audacity, whereas Empty Vessels is more business as usual with the 8th Doctor, Liv and Helen. And what we have with Empty Vessels are two stories across 3 episodes. We've got Eos Falling by Matt Fitton and Lure of the Zygons Part 1 and Part 2 by Roy Gill. Two very strong and solid writers for this 3-part box set, so let's start with Eos Falling. So the Doctor, Liv and Helen essentially crash land inside of a crashing ship, and this spaceship is seemingly abandoned and ancient, and it's heading towards an inhabited planet. So the Doctor, Liv and Helen have to get to the front of the ship in order to stop it from crash landing, and to do this they essentially have to follow 2 paths. The Doctor goes through the air ducts, and Liv and Helen find their own way through the main hub of the ship. However, the TARDIS travellers find that they may not be alone in this empty vessel. I see what you did there. No, because half of the ship appears to be brand new straight out of the factory, and the other half of the ship is ancient, with its mechanisms rusting and its furniture falling apart and the food rotting. And that's because these 2 halves of the ship are temporally out of phase, and that has created essentially a ghost ship.
What do you mean this is your job?
The rescue contract. It's mine, so you can get off this ship.
Rescue contract? You were bidding to answer an SOS?
Yeah. Offer tendered and accepted. Don't do this for my health, do I? Look, move!
Who contracted you, the colony?
Who else?
The colony that faces obliteration if someone doesn't stop this ship from crashing into them?
Yeah, and you'd think they'd have been more generous from the start.
That's appalling. Mercenary. Profiting from other people's misfortune.
What are you doing? Writing my CV? How'd you get on board?
My transportation's on another deck.
No, I mean, how'd you get past all that glowing stuff outside? I didn't see another entry point.
What glowing stuff?
Kit took a sample. Could be what caused the engine malfunction. Oh, never mind. Once we're out of this vent, you can toddle back to your transportation. By my reckoning, we're 20 meters from the access ladder. Move it!
I think Eos Falling has some really cool ideas. I think the idea of having these 2 areas of the ship that are temporally out of phase with each other, it reminded me a bit of Series 6's The Girl Who Waited, and I think there's some strong character work in here, because you get this contracted rescuer called Jenka, played by Orlessa Altaz, who basically is just out for herself with her cute little robot Kit, and she does these rescues by contract for hire, and once she discovers that it's essentially a ghost ship and there's no one to save, she's getting right out of there because it doesn't really matter to her contract whether or not the ship crashes into this planet. Her arc is as predictable as you would expect it to be, but there was still some nice 3rd act flourishes in the story that it gave her, and as usual I really like the dynamic between Liv and Helen. It's probably the best part about this whole box set across both of the stories, Liv and Helen's dynamic, as being these 2 older women who aren't really as taken away and swept up in the 8th Doctor's romanticist nature, and are absolutely willing and able to call him out on his BS. But also the way how they have such a great interplay with each other, it's just always so refreshing to hear. Like, we have 2 outright grown-ups in the TARDIS for a change, and the way that shifts the dynamic is really novel and entertaining. They're also teasing some story elements about Helen Sinclair, where there's been a recurring trend in some of her more recent stories where the TARDIS is seemingly taking her to places that impact her family line. In the Echoes box set, in the Lost Heart story, she met her grandfather Robert, and in the Connections box set she met her long-lost brother Albie in Albie's Angels. So there's clearly some sort of a long game that they're playing with Helen's character, because out of this TARDIS trio, we don't know how Helen's story ends. But considering that the last 8th Doctor Liv and Helen box set was a year and a half ago, God knows how long it's going to be until we can see that story come to fruition. Overall, Eos Falling is a solid story. I did feel the sense of claustrophobia on the ship and had some really cool ideas and a cool ending, but I don't know, it didn't really feel scary enough, it didn't really feel dramatic enough. It kind of felt like all of the elements of the story just needed to be bumped up a few more notches. It was fine. However, it seems that the story that the Big Finish team team were most excited about was Lure of the Zygons, this two-parter by Roy Gill. Lure of the Zygons and Eos Falling start basically identically, with a distress signal, which is absolutely fine, but both of these stories do that. The Doctor, Liv and Helen find themselves on a deserted world and they find a crashed ship, and this crashed ship belongs to the sibling of Captain Shay Elhan, played by Nisha Naya, who is trying to find the lost sibling. So the Doctor's crew and Elhan's crew investigate this wrecked ship, but there they discover the Zygons, and it turns out to be a trap. You know, Lure of the Zygons, it's in the title. Because, and minor spoilers here, Elhan's sibling is Wren, played by Madison Bulliment, and they are the key to making this ship work. This ship is called the Martlet, which is named after a mythical bird without feet and that never lands, and the Zygons are wanting to copy Wren to get the key to this ship so that they can find a new homeworld elsewhere. Yeah, Winnie, Zygons. You like Zygons? So it's a race against time for the 8th Doctor and friends to try and save Wren.
Locate the running log. Something brought this ship down, and I want to know what.
I want to check if the Martlet's viable for flight.
Oh, that's not our main objective. Rescue before recovery.
Yeah, I know, but good to have options.
We'll take the quarter rotation to search. Rendezvous back here by the airlock. Liv, you're with me. We'll start below decks.
Engine room at last. Ellen?
I'll go with Taverner. Engineering does nothing for me, but I know language. I want to see more of that data.
Can't do any harm. She could be useful.
On the other hand, the bridge sounds interesting too. I'll come with you.
And no, you're with us. I can see what skill sets Liv and Helen bring, but you are still a mystery.
Well, mostly he just drifts about, improvises and drinks tea.
I feel seen. Very well. I'm at your disposal, Captain.
Everyone, stay alert and be careful. We've sealed the hatch, but if any hostiles outside are over basic intelligence or even just above Taverners,
Bit harsh.
they could figure out a way in. Now, let's get going.
Lure of the Zygons is a lot like Eos Falling. It's a fine, solid story. I just wish that basically everything about it was bumped up a few more notches. I wish the Zygons were scarier and more effective as villains. I wish that the framing device was utilised a lot more interestingly, in that part 1 is framed with Helen recuperating in a hospital bed with Liv trying to get her to remember how she got there. I wish that they played with that a bit more. I wish we knew more about Elhan and Wren's relationship as siblings to make the drama hit harder. There's a really cool concept with some hatchling baby Zygons, and I just wish way more was done with that. You know, I enjoyed Lure of the Zygons, but it's like, you have so many cool ideas here, I just wish you were exploring them a bit more. And it's not like you didn't have the time. This is a 2-part story, and honestly, in terms of the actual bare bones of the narrative, you could have cut maybe 30 or 40 minutes from the story. This does not feel like this should have been a 2-parter. This could maybe have worked better like the classic Big Finish monthly adventures, where you've got these 4 20 to 25 minute episodes. But at 2 hours, Lure of the Zygons does feel a bit laborious. Thankfully, they didn't try and make the Zygons' appearance in the first part of the story a big mystery, because they're in the title, but part 1 of Lure of the Zygons is just a lot of, you know, wandering and tiptoeing around a derelict spaceship. There are some cool themes here. I do like how they try and give these spaceships that are at the heart of the story their own personality. Yes, Wren's ship, the Martlet, but also Elhan's ship, the Amarantine. Like how these ships become extensions of their personality, and I do like what the story does with that. I also like the conflict within the heart of the Zygon Empire as well. You've got Vorgel, played by Madison Bulliment, who's trying to copy Wren, but you also have Nicholas Briggs as this warmongering older veteran Zygon, giving a really strong performance, and you get this generational divide amongst people who are trying to uphold a dying empire and those who want to explore and, you know, try and see more of the universe. I will say the biggest thing going in Lure of the Zygons' favour is the casting of Madison Bulliment as Wren. Now, Madison has been a terrific feather in the cap of Big Finish for a couple of years now. They were great as Tay in the 9th Doctor adventure story The Green Gift, Carmen in the 11th Doctor Chronicles Sins of the Flesh Cyberman conversion therapy story, and also Nyseth in the Clockwork Swan story from the Call Me Master in a Demons box set. They have been really terrific over the past couple of years. Madison is a real terrific find for Big Finish, and honestly, if I was a showrunner for Doctor Who the TV series, I wouldn't say I would definitely cast Madison Bulliment as the Doctor Who companion, but I would definitely get them in for screen tests. And I think that their dual performance as Wren and Vorgel in Lure of the Zygons is another another terrific standout performance. As a performer, Madison keeps on going from strength to strength. But aside from that, there's not too much to talk about with Lure of the Zygons, despite it being a 2-hour story. Like I said, I just wish that there was a bit more to it. The 8th Doctor Adventures box set, Empty Vessels, it's standard, decent Doctor Who, but that's kind of all it is, and I wish it was better, especially with this terrific TARDIS trio. I understand that the standard of 8th Doctor Liv and Helen box set is really high at the moment. What Lies Inside, Connections, Echoes, terrific top-tier box sets, and unfortunately Empty Vessels does feel like a notable step down. It's not a bad box set, but this is standard Doctor Who. This is your standard 3 hours of Doctor Who for the evening. And I feel like maybe we should be aiming a little bit better than that, especially for the 8th Doctor, Liv and Helen, and a terrific cast overall with all of these stories and a Zygon 2-parter. I feel like we could be aiming a bit higher here. Not a bad box set, but definitely should be better. And that's my review of the 8th Doctor Adventures Empty Vessels. What did you folks think of the box set? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, like and subscribe for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews, and folks, I'll see you all next time.